Hi, welcome to Quiltinator.com. I'm Michelle Johnson and I'd like to show you my favorite way of making half square triangles. This is a half square triangle that's already been trimmed up. And originally, half square triangles were a square cut in half, and then you would draw your 1/4 inch line. See if you can see that a little bit better. Right here. They would draw a 1/4 inch line, and then that's what they would sew on. And then when they pressed it open, that's what they got. Of course, they always had the little tails, which we always get. But doing it this way, these are bias seams, so they have stretch, and if you pull too much, it distorts it. And when you're putting your blocks together, it can be very unsightly. So now when we make half square triangles, what we do is you can put down that tape method like I showed you before, and then you can put your lines or the corners on each point and then sew right along that. But for a long time I didn't have a 1/4 inch foot. So what I would do is I would draw a line down, and then I would take my ruler and put the 1/4 inch mark right on here, and then I would draw on each side of the line. And then I would sew on that. Do right here. And this trick is what most of my half square triangles come from this method. And then I would sew them on the 2 lines on the outside and then just cut right here down the center. My favorite half square triangle method is the accidental half square triangles. And the flip and fold technique that I've been showing you, when you fold it over, well actually let me show you. Here is my line that I drew, and it's kind of difficult to see, I know. But then I try to sew 1 or 2 threads on the inside. And the reason I do this is it takes up some room, and I want this to go all the way across the back. If you'll look on this one, and you can see that I actually sewed on the wrong side of the line. So I'm going to have to rip out and redo this one. But here you can see that if you don't get to the edge here, if it doesn't go all the way over, then your block would be skewed. It would not come out to be the right size. So what I would do in other instances where they come out crooked like this is I would use the backing as my template and leave this backing piece in. But I'm going to show you my favorite method, and that is this accidental, or if you can put this over and you use this as your template and you trim it up. And if you can see here, it's just barely right over. But even that is like about a 1/16 of an inch over, if I leave that and sew, my blocks are going to be off just a touch. So I use this as my template. And then what I will do is I go through, actually let me turn it a little bit, so I was hoping you'd be able to see that. But what I do is I just use this as my template, and then I just trim up that edge. There's that, and then I trim up just that little sliver right there. I didn't do such a good job because I'm sitting down and I don't have all my stuff together. So what you would do after you've trimmed up and everything looks good, then what I do is I take from the sewn line, the one that I actually had sewn on, and I put it right at the 1/2 inch. I put that seam right there on the 1/2 inch mark. And then you just draw your line. You're going to sew right on the line that you drew. And so when you sew on that line, you're going to end up cutting this piece in half. And let me sew real quick. So now the two seam lines are 1/2 inch apart. So now what I'm going to do is take this oops, I forgot to. And now I have my folded corner. And now I have a 1/2 square triangle. So the accidental ones, you don't ever know what size you're going to get. It just depends on what you have. And that's how I ended up with all these little bitty teeny ones, and I made a block out of it. And eventually I will put this block into something else. But that way it's not really a waste of fabric, all those pieces you cut out. And you know, you have something that you can either put around the edge of a quilt or add into some other little blocks or something. And even if the ones that we were doing with the flip and fold technique and our little bitty squares, if I go a 1/2 inch, I'm going to end up with a little 1/2 square triangle that'll be just slightly smaller than this one. It'd be probably about like that. And you think, well, you know, what would I do with something so tiny? Well, you can make a miniature quilt, a dolly quilt, or just have some little pieces for decorations. And you know, say you're doing something for a memory album. It's a cute little, there's all sorts of things you can do with this. So I'm going to show you in some future videos 1/2 square triangle quilts and things you can do with that. So this is Michelle Johnson with Quiltinator.com, and I am getting back to quilting.